Hey there, Wisconsin. Tom Hartman here. Democracy is not a spectator sport, so join me each and every weekday right here on Civic Media for the Tom Hartman program from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us on the Todd Allbaugh Show for Thursday, September 11th. In about 35 seconds, we'll kick off the show with a report on some breaking news over near Racine.
More breaking news 2 days in a row.
It doesn't stop.
From Civic Media News headquarters in Madison, I am Todd Allbaugh. It is 6 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock, bringing you a breaking news story at this hour, especially for our listeners in the Racine, Milwaukee area. According to Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel at this hour, a small airplane with 3 people on board has gone into Lake Michigan following a mid-flight problem after departing from Milwaukee and heading to Michigan, according to an airport spokesperson. The U.S. Coast Guard and other rescue and dive teams are responding to the incident, which occurred about 12 nautical miles off the coast of Milwaukee, said U.S. Coast Guard Petty Officer Michael LaFou. Nautical miles are used to measure the distance traveled through water and are slightly longer than a land mile. In an email, a spokesperson with Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport said the plane left the airport at about 12:17 this afternoon and was headed towards Michigan when it went into the water at about 12:37 this afternoon. The airport spokesman said that there were no details available on the nature of the emergency. The Coast Guard sent a helicopter and a 45-foot rescue boat to the plane's location. No information was immediately available. The plane was a Cirrus SR-22 aircraft, which is a small single-engine propeller plane, according to the spokesperson. Now, as of about 12 minutes ago, that reporting there was from David Clary of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. I can tell you that Amy Fleury of Channel 12 WISN, the ABC affiliate in Milwaukee, 10 minutes ago, posted this Dateline Wind Point, Wisconsin, saying that the small plane that went down 12 nautical miles off Racine, that now the U.S. Coast Guard is reporting that the 3 people on board have, in fact, been rescued. According to the Coast Guard and Channel 12 in Milwaukee, again, those 3 people that were on that plane that have gone down into Lake Michigan, according to Channel 12 and the Coast Guard, have been rescued. It is believed that they are being taken to the Coast Guard station in Milwaukee to be evaluated. So certainly good news there. If that turns out to be accurate, we have every reason to believe it is. Again, recapping, a single propeller plane went down about 12 nautical miles into Lake Michigan after taking off from Milwaukee Mitchell International Airport earlier this afternoon. And now, according to Channel 12 News in Milwaukee and the U.S. Coast Guard, the 3 people on board that plane have been rescued and are believed to have been taken to the Coast Guard station in Milwaukee to be evaluated. We'll continue to monitor this fluid news situation off the coast of Milwaukee and Racine as more news becomes available. For now, at Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, I'm Todd Allbaugh.
From the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day? Were you in the yard with your wife and children, or working on some stage in L.A.? Did you stand there in shock at the sight of that black smoke rising against that blue sky? Did you shout out in anger and fear for your neighbor, or did you just sit down and cry? Did you weep
Welcome,
for
everybody,
the children
to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network on this Thursday, September 11th, 2025, along with Aaron Zommers, our producer and engineer, coming to you from the world headquarters of Civic Media in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. On a slightly haunting and eerie blue sky day, very much like that September 11th in 2001. For those of us who are alive and remembered it, haunting, Alan Jackson. That song played constantly in the months and years directly after 9/11. And on the 24th anniversary of that tragedy, we are going to pause and reflect and remember. For those of us who are alive on September 11th, we remember that the world came together, certainly the country, on the next day, September 12th. Everybody said, never forget, never forget. Here we are 24 years removed. And for those of us of a certain age, you're kind of reminded that a lot of people right now, Americans that were not alive or were too young to remember the events of September 11th. So I'm going to take time and remember September 11th today. We're going to continue to follow the breaking news story that we just told you about in that special report. The good news, it appears, according to Channel 12 and the Coast Guard, that there's 3 people that were on board that single-engine aircraft that left Milwaukee International Airport earlier this afternoon have been rescued, and are on their way to a Coast Guard monitoring station. So that is certainly good news. And also going to give you the latest information on the assassination of conservative commentator and founder of Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk. We were, of course, on the air yesterday as that was breaking. And again, many thanks to Dan Schaefer, Luke Mathers, and Aaron Zommers for helping out with that coverage yesterday. Never easy, but important that we bring you the facts. So we'll tell you the latest on that. They have now identified another suspect, have released images of that individual. And I want to take time today. Look, if you're tuning in to get hyped up, to get amped up, you came to the wrong place. And I'd encourage you to look somewhere else. Because what I think is helpful in times like these is to take a breath and say, what can I, Todd, and what can each of us do to make things better? And I want to take some time. We tried to get our friend Kira Sabin, life coach, psychologist, to be on the show today. She was booked with a client, and certainly understand that at short notice. But I want to go back to some of what Kira has been on this program and talked about before, which are healthy coping skills. And she's talked about, from a medical health and psychological standpoint, that we as humans are simply not wired to be in a crisis all the time. That from our earliest days of being humans, we were wired. Our DNA is that when you have danger or something, that's when your adrenaline kicks in, right? And it's a life-saving mechanism. And that is carried over as we've evolved as humans. And so our bodies, our psyches react to these things in that way, but we're not, if you want to go back to make it really simplistic, overly simplistic, go back to caveman times, we're not wired to fight the wild boar 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when we have all this news coming at us, assassinations, school shootings, we'll follow up on the school shooting that happened in Colorado yesterday at the same time we were talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination. And I think for a lot of Wisconsinites that I talk to, again, it goes back to just feeling completely overwhelmed and like we can't do anything about this and you don't know what to do. And so I want to talk a little bit about all of our mental health and how we deal with these news cycles. And again, to go back to what each of us can do to move forward and to tone things down a little bit. That doesn't, and by the way, in my opinion, that doesn't mean giving up what we believe. It doesn't mean fighting for things that we feel are right. But how we do that, right? How we do that. And give you the latest information on the Charlie Kirk story as well. Also, yes, I've got my Packer polo shirt on if you're watching on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Because there's a Packer game tonight. Maybe something less relevant. But on the other hand, getting back to our mental health, we all need these outlets that aren't news, that aren't tragedy, that aren't triggering us. Well, if the Packers lose tonight, that might trigger us as well. But we have some cuts from Mike Clemens a little bit later in the show, our great sports reporter. He talked with Packers head coach Mike LaFleur. Also, it's Matt LaFleur, right? Yeah, Matt LaFleur. Also talked to Micah Parsons a little bit, and Jordan Love, the quarterback for the Green Bay Packers. Brewers, third time in 3 years. Brewers got swept by the Rangers. Brewers going through a little bit of a rough patch, still 5.5 games ahead of the Cubs for the NL Central. They have the day off today, and then they start a 4-game series against, or a 3-game series against the St. Louis Cardinals on Friday. So we'll get to that a little bit later as well. But I want to start at 16 minutes past the hour with a remembrance of 9/11. And this is courtesy of CBS News. There's a lot of other outlets out there doing this today. I just want to read you a little bit, and particularly for those that were not alive on 9/11. New York City is pausing to remember the 9/11 terror attacks that forever altered the city and the country. The annual reading of names and moments of silence were held this morning at the 9/11 Memorial and Museum in Lower Manhattan. It's a somber ceremony when New Yorkers and the nation vow to, quote-unquote, never forget what happened on that day. The shorthand, 9/11, stands for September 11th, when terrorists carried out coordinated attacks on the World Trade Center in New York City and the Pentagon in Arlington, Virginia. 19 terrorists from the Islamic extremist group Al-Qaeda hijacked 4 planes, deliberately crashing 2 of them into the World Trade Center's Twin Towers and another into the Pentagon. A 4th hijacked plane was headed to the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C., but passengers and crew members fought back, and it crashed into an empty field in Pennsylvania. While many remember the horrific images of that day, we also share the harrowing stories of the first responders and volunteers who rushed to help with the rescue and recovery efforts at Ground Zero. The 9/11 terror attacks took place 24 years ago today, on Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. George W. Bush was 9 months into his first term in office, and Rudy Giuliani was in his final months as mayor of New York City. Derek Jeter still was still the Yankees captain. I'm Real by Jennifer Lopez and Ja Rule was at the top of the Billboard 100 chart. And Gary Condit and Chandra Levy were a top news story of the day. The attacks happened on primary election day in New York City, less than a week after students went back to school for the year. Polls opened at 6 a.m. that morning and just hours before the tragedy struck. Could go through the timeline, but those of us who were alive at that time, it happened to local time in New York City, 7:59 in the morning. The first jet took off, and at 8:15, then a second, and so on and so forth. The crashes happened to local time at 8:46 in the morning, be 7:46 here in Wisconsin. And for those of us who were alive, it was happening in real time on the morning shows on national television. We'll come back, talk about some remembrances, update you on the latest from the Charlie Kirk assassination in Utah. It's a special edition of the Todd Allbaugh Show for September 11th, 2025. Stay tuned.
Where were you when the world stopped turning on that September day?
6 more
Thank you for
bikes,
turning down my
better
mic.
radio.
Coffee went down the wrong way.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy. In 2011, I founded Wesley Financial Group with one goal in mind: to help honest folks out of their timeshares permanently. Today, I run Wesley with my two sons, a real family business, treating every client and every employee like we'd want our own family treated. That philosophy has helped us grow into the largest, most trusted
All right, we have
company in the United
Stuart
States.
J. Waddles on the
Fortune
line
magazine even recognized us
with
one of the
an
best places to
update
work.
on the
Why?
Okay.
Because
plane
we
crash.
genuinely
And also,
care.
did you see
In
my
fact,
message?
some of our former clients were so
Tom and
moved by
McFarland
their
called about
experience working with
how,
us,
you know, like you said, we
they
can't be in
joined our
crisis mode
team
all the
so they
time.
could help
Okay, cool.
others
Thank you
through
very much.
timeshare freedom.
All right,
If
Stuart,
you're
we'll
stuck in a
go to you
timeshare,
when we come back
give us
here.
a call. Let our family help your family.
Call Wesley now for your free timeshare exit kit. 800-549-8866. 800-549-8866. 800-549-8866.
Today's job market is full of demand for skilled trade workers. Electricians, welders, mechanics, these and other trades are the backbone of every community. They're also a huge part in making sure the Army National Guard is always fulfilling its mission of service to our country and communities. Soldiers train to keep the power flowing, engines running, and supplies moving. The skilled trades these soldiers perform are the same ones needed in today's civilian workforce. Army National Guard soldiers are on the fast track to learning skills that can set them up for success at home with companies looking to hire the best. With options from plumber to helicopter mechanic and everything in between, soldiers are able to select the trades that best fit their lives. Their resumes are being built through their paid training and part-time service. Find out how you too can learn a trade profession and serve your community and country by visiting NationalGuard.com. Sponsored by the
30 seconds.
Wisconsin Army National
Thank you.
Guard. Aired by the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Now 22 past the hour of 2 o'clock on this Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Glad to have you along. Talking about the anniversary, the 24th anniversary of September 11th. Going to remember the first responders, a lot of the heroes of that day as well. Going to give you an update on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Some new reporting there. They have now released an image of a new suspect. We'll talk about that a little bit as well, and talk about overall mental health, how we cope with this nonstop barrage of overwhelming news. It seems like who's helping and who's hurting in this instance. But right now, I want to go to the phone line and go to a story that appears to have a much better ending today. Stuart J. Waddles, our great reporter with WRJN, WAUK down in southeast Wisconsin, joining us on our breaking news, top news story of the hour, and that is a small plane going into Lake Michigan after taking off from General Mitchell Field in Milwaukee. Stuart, thanks for taking time to join us. What updates can you provide us, please?
Yeah, you covered a lot of it there. And like you said, this kind of took a turn for a while there. It was kind of concerning. You hear a plane going down and people seen on the plane from above needing rescue. And it turns out all three people that were on that plane were rescued wearing life jackets, and they're okay. So there's a lot to find out about what happened with that. So it went down quick. About 12 minutes into its flight, about 7,000 feet, it dropped to the lake. So there's 3 to 4 foot waves out there. The Coast Guard's around. A boat comes in and plucks them out of the water, and we're trying to find out more.
Well, that's great. Great news on a tough news day all the way around. It's wonderful to have something that appears to have some good news at the end of this, and certainly thankful that those 3 individuals were rescued, it appears, and hopefully they are healthy and are able to recover. And appreciate you being on it, Stuart, and we'll check back in with you as soon as you have more. Thank you so much, Stuart.
You too. Thanks, bud.
Stuart J. Waddles from our WRJN and WAUK news team in southeast Wisconsin. Again, we'll continue to follow that plane crash and apparent rescue of the 3 people there in Lake Michigan. What are your remembrances of 9/11? 24 years ago today, if you were still alive, or I shouldn't say still, if you were alive. The attacks, of course, killed 2,977 people from 90 countries. Most of them were killed in New York, in the Twin Towers, while 184 were killed at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. 40 were killed aboard Flight 93 in those fields of Pennsylvania. And, of course, as Jon Stewart has fought for in Congress, there were several first responders, firefighters, EMTs, ambulance people that died from complications as a result of being in that wreckage and rescuing people. And there are so many great stories of heroism on that day, on 9/11. And as others have talked about today, the feeling that so many of us had on September 12th, that we're all in this together, that the partisanship melts away, that we're Americans first. Boy, you'd give anything to have that on this September 12th. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Let's go to Tom, listening to us in McFarland on WMDX in Madison. Tom, thanks for calling. What say you?
Thanks for taking my call. And, just in regards to the discussion as far as how we can't stay in crisis forever, I'm a therapist myself, and this is something I often talk about with my clients. So just to kind of reframe it, to look at it from a slightly different perspective, if I asked you to do 100 push-ups, would you be able to pound out all 100 push-ups in one go?
I could not, no.
And I don't care how strong you are, nobody can do push-ups indefinitely. At some point, muscle fatigue will take over, and you're going to have to stop. And that doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you or there's something broken. It's just that it's just about capacity. But bring this back to mental health, and suddenly we feel we should be able to pound through this all day, every day, without taking any kind of a break. And it's just not the way that it works. It's all about that capacity. And when it comes to physical workout, we're very good about making sure we're resting in between the sets or resting in between the muscle groups for as far as the days. But when it comes to mental health, we just kind of fall down on that, thinking that, well, I don't need to take a break or I don't need to go into any kind of recovery. And we forget, no, you're going to burn yourself out fast.
See, Tom, this is why I love doing this show. Our great listeners like yourself. We've talked to you before. I had no idea that you're a therapist. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to call in. In your expert professional experience or advice, what should each of us, give us 1 or 2 examples of things that we can do to mentally just take care of ourselves with this ongoing slaught of crisis information?
I would say the easiest thing is any kind of a break. One thing I often tell, the body is stupid. That's why we have a brain. And the body doesn't understand context or circumstances or judgment. It doesn't understand any of that. The only thing it likes is feeling like there's a sense of control, that it has some kind of a plan. So any action that you can take that does it like right in the middle of whatever it is that you're doing, do that. For example, anxiety management. You might have heard yoga, exercise, meditation, going for a walk. All of these are great techniques to manage anxiety, which is very true. But you'll also notice that none of these techniques have anything to do whatsoever with whatever is stressing you out in the first place. And the reason why is the body is stupid. That's why we have a brain. So do any action that takes you away from whatever it is that you're stressing out. Go for a walk. Get a drink of water. Read a book. Any action. The body doesn't care. The only thing the body likes is feeling that it has that sense of control, that it's doing something. So, take that break away from social media.
Tom, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time to call. This is exactly where I wanted to take this show today. And you provided that professional expertise, because I can read things, but to have an actual person in the profession means the world. And I thank you for that. Feel free to call anytime.
Not a problem.
All right. Thank you very much. There you go. Tom McFarland, therapist. Exactly what we wanted to talk about today. Yes, we're going to get to the latest on Charlie Kirk, and we're going to talk more about 9/11, your phone calls as well. But we're going to talk about how we just deal with this overwhelming feeling and taking care of each other. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show. Farm News is next with Pam Yonke. Phone calls on the other side for a Tuesday. Stay with us. Actually, it's Thursday.
The Mad City, 4 Lakes, State Street.
Sure is. That was great, though.
That was fantastic. God
very
love
good
Todd.
advice.
Thank
If
you.
you're still hearing, you hear us. Thank you very much.
Charles, if you can hear us, I think you can. If you can stay with us through the break, got about 4 minutes, and we'll take your call.
You've probably felt it yourself. Overdoing it a little bit with beautiful weather? Well, guess what? As the harvest season approaches, farmers need to listen to their bodies as well. I'm Pam Yonke with a quick update on what's happening in food and farming news.
And specifically what Charles said he wanted to talk about was some of the good stories from 9/11.
Awesome. That's great. That's where I wanted to get to.
Farmers and ranchers across the country trust Can-Am because of how they build, support, and stand behind their machines. Now they're backing that trust with even more. Get 24 months of coverage when you purchase select Defender and Outlander models through the Can-Am Agricultural and Business Program. That's how confident they are in the durability of their units. That's not all. You also get a rebate up to $3,500. Give your fleet the upgrade it deserves. Visit the Can-Am website to learn more about the program. Offer ends October 31st. Certain conditions apply. See dealer for details.
Dr. Jay Makovic is part owner of Belleville Chiropractic and Wellness Center. He grew up on his family's farm in Muscadet and understands firsthand the hard work and dedication that farmers pour into their livelihoods. But as the harvest approaches, he also reminds farmers, listen to your bodies.
I think we're seeing more injuries, low back strain, low back irritation, nerve irritation, disc injuries, and also a lot of soft tissue injuries from that static position when they're in these pieces of equipment and machinery. And we're seeing that they're doing this for such long periods of time that their ability to recover and for that spine to really be resilient, it diminishes. We have to really be able to communicate that first and foremost to the patient, that I understand, again, being a farmer, that's going to happen. We have to better educate and empower the patient that it's not the end of the world.
Mostly Dr. Jay Makovic from Belleville Chiropractic and Wellness Center says he wants farmers to acknowledge when their bodies need a rest, need a break, maybe even need a visit to a doctor. And remember, movement is medicine, motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion. I kind of like that.
I don't think I've heard that before, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. Nicely done, Pam Yonke.
Solutions for your operation. BioVet's innovative product line supports
Welcome
the
everybody
immune
watching
system,
this on the stream. We are in a
reproduction,
little break.
Along with growth and
We
development
keep
of your livestock.
the lights on, as they say, during the break. So we're broadcasting to you fine folks, streaming, but not over the air. We're listening to the what's going on over the air right now. You can hear that, the commercial. So we're going to come back. We got Charles from Milwaukee on the line. We're talking a little bit about 9/11. Some of the helpers from that time 24 years ago. I'm going to update you on the Charlie Kirk story and talk about mental health a little bit more. And then, yes, later on, Packers as well. So
it's a
stay with us.
guide to supper clubs and restaurants serving prime rib. Right now, they've got 16 locations all across the state that dot the map, but they're looking for your
Also,
input
with
and
the school shooting that occurred yesterday.
Thank you for the reminder. Yep.
That's literally
Which
a look
it looks
at
like
Food News on a Thursday.
one of the
I'm Pam
students is still in
Yonke.
critical condition, but the only person
Civic
dead at
Media
this
has a
time
number
is the
of great
shooter.
jobs across the state.
Died by
Open now
suicide, I
at
believe,
civicmedia.us/careers.
Yep, self-inflicted
I'm
gunshot.
meteorologist Brandon Bormans. Another beautiful September day with mostly sunny skies, a high of 77. For tonight, some patchy fog possible late, otherwise partly cloudy with a low of 54. On your Friday, some patchy fog early, then skies becoming mostly sunny, a warm day with a high of 83. Currently, it's 76.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for youth.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals into your body.
And nicotine, which can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media,
many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping.
Because when you talk, they hear you.
Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
This is Robert Pilot, host of Native Roots Radio. On our show, we talk about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. You'll also hear from Turtle Island voices like Arvina Martin, State Representative Heather Keeler, Ruth Anna Buffalo,
About 30
Dr. Anthony
seconds.
Staley, State Senator
ABC
Mary Kunesh,
is currently
Robert
reporting
Hillary,
that multiple
Bob
historically
Blake.
black
Native
college and
issues are
universities are
human
under
issues,
lockdown
and
after
human
getting
issues
threats
are
today
Native issues.
Native Roots
in
weeknights at
several
8
states.
on your local
All right,
Civic
thank you.
Media radio station.
Pete Schwaba. On the next Nightlight, we make the popcorn pick of the week.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. It is Thursday. I think I said going into the break it was Tuesday. It's Thursday. They both start with T. Thursday, September 11th, 2025. 35 minutes now past the hour of 2 o'clock. Zomer is on the board. Glad to have you along. Busy news day following lots of things. We'll get you updated here momentarily. Good news coming out of Racine, Kenosha, Milwaukee. A plane took off of General Mitchell Field in Milwaukee. Single engine propeller plane, 3 people on board, crashed into Lake Michigan, or I should say went into Lake Michigan, about 12 nautical miles off the coast of Milwaukee. According to our own Stuart J. Waddles and others, the 3 people on board have been rescued by the Coast Guard and are on their way to the Coast Guard facilities for evaluation at this hour. We'll update you on that. Also following the latest of the Charlie Kirk story coming up next here, and also apparently at least some precautionary lockdowns on some historically Black universities in this state. Lots to get to, but wanted to continue at least for a moment the discussion on the anniversary, the 24th anniversary of 9/11, the attack here by Al-Qaeda in the United States, where nearly 3,000 people were killed, either at the Twin Towers, at the Pentagon, or in the farm fields of Pennsylvania, as those heroes, those common American citizens that were on board Flight 93 said, let's roll. And they took a poll of those on board and said, we got to stop this. We know we're not going to make it, but we're going to save a lot of other lives. Those people were and are heroes. Also heroes, the first responders, the firefighters, the policemen, ambulance crew, EMTs, everyday citizens who who instead of rushing away from the Twin Towers disaster, away from the Pentagon, rushed toward them. And many of those folks ended up dying. They aren't in the official numbers, but they ended up dying months and years later because of the medical effects that they got by helping others. And those people are heroes. Where were you, as the Alan Jackson song says, on that September day? I was in Richland Center. I had gone back to school at the time. Was on my way to the campus. And stopped. My mom was teaching kindergarten. And I stopped by and sure kids were out in the playground. I just said, take care of yourself. I love you. I went to class, and then kind of class was, it was like, hey, you don't have to stay or don't want, and spend the rest of the day in front of the TV watching Peter Jennings most of the day. You'll never forget it if you lived through it. What are your remembrances of 9/11? And also we're going to be talking about, many thanks to Tom, who's a therapist who called in there before the break, offering us official advice. I have some things here we're going to talk about from our own Kira Sabin on taking care of our mental health, that our minds just aren't built to handle this continual daily tragic news cycle. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Let's go to Charles, who has been waiting patiently in Milwaukee, listening on WAUK. Charles, thanks for holding. What say you?
Yep. So I remember I was on my way to work. I was around the corner. The radio station I was listening, I'm like, man, what in the world is going on? And by the time I walked into the school building, every classroom had it on the TV. So that was crazy. But good story, though, that I had never heard of until I went to New York this past July. And something that I don't really think they focus on was, they called it the mass boat lift. And so there was a gentleman that was watching what was going on with his wife. And he said, hey, I can't just sit here. I got to do something. He said he got in his boat. He said his wife told him, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to help. And she said, why? He said, because I need to. He said, if this is the way I go, then this is the way I'm going helping people. So he got in his boat, went to the Manhattan Island. Other people started showing up with their boats. And so the Coast Guard captain saw what was going on, got on the radio, did a mayday call, or all call, that anybody with a boat, big or small, if you can come to the island to help get people off, please do that.
Wow.
And they got 500,000 people off the island in less than 9 hours.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and we happened to see it. We went to the 9/11 memorial, and we sat down in the room where they were playing this video, and just very touching. I tell anyone, if you've never gone to New York, go there just to go to the 9/11 memorial. And if you're going there, please go to that, because it is very touching. And to see all the pictures of the people that passed, the wreckage of some of the fire trucks, the metal of the building that just crumbled. It is something else to see that area. But yeah, that was, like I said, Todd, that was something that you didn't hear about, was this huge, all these people in these boats coming, not knowing if their lives was going to be in danger. And they got 500,000 people off the island in less than 9 hours.
It's incredible, and I not heard that story, Charles. I appreciate you sharing it with us. And just another example, right, of others before self. And I wish that somehow there was a way to harness that energy, that attitude, and move it 24 years ahead to today. And I'm not saying it's not out there. I think it is out there, but it's been replaced by too much divisiveness, in my opinion. Agree or disagree, Charles?
Agree, Todd. Yep. You don't have the same sympathy for people. You know, you saw the outrage, what happened with Charlie Kirk, but there was no outrage about the 2 students that were shot at in Colorado, nor the young man that what is going on in his life at 17 or 18, where he then took his own life.
Yeah. Now you're talking about the Colorado shooting yesterday as well. We covered that a little bit yesterday. We'll update people. But I think that's a great point, Charles. And as we kind of navigate this discussion about, the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, I think your point is valid in that why is it that some folks, particularly on the conservative side, are martyrizing, if that's a word, Charlie Kirk? And again, I denounce all political violence. He is a human being, was a human being, has a wife and kids. That's a tragedy. But it's just, why is it that some folks want to martyr this one person, but we had school kids who were on their knees praying in a church a month ago? We had a state legislator in Minnesota assassinated in her home, and some folks don't have the same empathy, don't have the same reaction. And to be fair, there are people on the far left who were sickly celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Where's the empathy there? So I think that there are people on all political spectrums that need a gut check, a look in the mirror, and say, why aren't we having the same compassion for everyone?
Yep.
I appreciate the call.
You're right, Todd.
Yep. Thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate the call. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. Let's go to Dick in Madison on WMDX. Dick, thanks for listening. What say you?
Yeah, it was just we were just ready to go to work that morning. Head down the street a couple blocks to a job we had, and when it happened. But the most eerie thing about it that weekend to me, Todd, was the night before, the B-17 was in town, or one of them flying around, a beautiful night, late afternoon. And then that 3-day period where there was absolutely not an airplane in the sky.
Yeah, right.
It was just weird.
It was. It was really. Thank you for bringing that up, because you're right. We get so used to seeing the signs in the sky. I mean, I know it's not really clouds or smoke, but it's whatever it is. It's the condensation, leaves a white streak in the sky.
Yep,
none
vapor
of that.
trail,
The vapor trail. Thank you. And none of that, right? It was really eerie.
The only thing that was allowed was military, and even that was, I don't even remember seeing anything in the Madison area.
Thanks, Dick. We'll always appreciate your call. Thanks for your listenership. 855-752-4842. 855-752-4842. We're talking about remembrances of 9/11 from 24 years ago. Remembering the heroes, the EMTs, the first responders, the firefighters, the police officers, those average citizens who just rushed toward the danger to help their fellow citizens. Off of Facebook right now, our friend and ongoing contributor, Jeff Perry, says I had the opportunity to visit the official 9/11 memorial in Pennsylvania. Truly an amazing experience, and I recommend it for everyone. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. That's on my bucket list. I've not been there. I have not officially been to the 9/11 memorial in Manhattan, and really want to do that at some point soon. Let's go back to the phone lines, 855-752-4842. Gary, listening in Sussex on WMDX. Gary, thanks for calling. What say you?
Well, I want to talk about, first of all, the 9/11. I was going to work, and my wife called me, and then I got to work, and I started watching it, and I thought that it was an accident.
Mm-hmm. Many of us did, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and until the next one got hit, then I knew that, man, we were under attack, and I saw all those people on TV walking around and without masks on, and and obviously those people, most of them probably died. Like 7,000 extra people have been affected by this, and, But the reason I call it, I want to talk about Charlie Kirk, and you just mentioned something about, why are we making this guy? And I'm not saying this is negative at all, Todd. Okay, and you didn't say it. I didn't take it negatively either.
Fair enough.
But you said why are we making Charlie a martyr? Well, Charlie, and all lives do matter. I agree, because there's somebody's child.
100%.
Every single person. But as far as Charlie Kirk, he has possibly could have been our president of the United States, in 2032, or could have been a running mate in 2028. Who knows? But he did make a huge impact for the conservative young people in this country by going to these universities that are preaching secularism and talking about Christianity and stuff. Yeah, he was somewhat controversial, but he had the balls, just like I do when I call up you guys and I get comments about, negative comments about what I have to say, especially the first 8 years that I've been calling up and talking with Dom and Earl and stuff like that. I get hate calls all the time. And it didn't bother me. I wanted to give my opinion. That's all. And for people to hear that people do think different than all your listeners, because all your listeners basically think alike.
I hope there's a little bit more diversity than just you or one or two people. Let me ask you this, because I'm short on time here, Gary, and I want to make sure that I think you represented my comments pretty well. But I just was making the comment that it's confusing and a little troubling, more than a little troubling to me, that folks on the MAGA right, they're, like I say, making Charlie Kirk out to be a martyr in some regards, but they didn't have that same empathy for school kids that were killed in Michigan or Minnesota, or the legislator who was assassinated there. And in fairness, I call out and have a real problem and denounce anybody on the left who is celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. That's sick and it's wrong. And I think that on both, to an extreme or to a degree, that there are people on both sides that just need to have more compassion for one another, Gary.
Well, I agree 100%. There's this guy that got fired yesterday on MSNBC, Matthew Dowd. That guy's an idiot.
Well, okay, I have feelings on that too, but I'm up against the clock. Always a pleasure, Gary. Thank you so much. Your phone calls, 855-752-4842. Don't go anywhere. It's the Allbaugh Show for a Thursday on the Civic Media. Ready to work.
News, weather, and sports on air and streaming on the Civic Media app. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
This is Jim Santel, the host of Amicus, a law review on the broadcast stations of Civic Media. Every step you take at the Dane County Walk to End Alzheimer's brings hope to families affected by dementia. Join WMDX on October 5th at Warner Park as we walk to raise funds for care, support, and research. Pre-registration at alz.org/walk.
The Dane County Humane Society offers programs for humans of all ages.
Oh, wow.
For kids, there's Camp Paw Print, Scout Workshops, After Dark, and the new Camp Wildside. They also offer field trips, birthday parties, service days, and their new Paws and Pages reading program. Learn more at giveshelter.org/education.
Hi, my name is Chuck Collins. I'm the great-grandson of the meatpacker Oscar Mayer and a member of the Patriotic Millionaires. I'm also the author of a new book, Burned by Billionaires: How Concentrated Wealth and Power Are Ruining Our Lives and Planet. This summer proved to all of us that climate change is real and it is deadly. And I'm here to tell you that a small group of billionaires are making it worse. Did you know that billionaire Jeff Bezos' wife, Lauren Sanchez, emitted more carbon in her 11-minute Blue Origin space flight than the average person emits in a lifetime? Did you know that the average super yacht produces as much carbon emissions as 1,500 regular vehicles, and that private jets emit 10 to 20 times more pollutants per passenger than commercial airplanes? So who should pay for climate change? People like you who recycle and turn off the lights when you leave the room, or billionaires who take joy rides in space? Tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. I'm Chuck Collins. I'm a patriotic
Let's see. So
millionaire.
yeah, Eric and Carmelo both calling about 9/11.
Okay.
Bill was calling. He wanted to compare the Charlie Kirk assassination to George Wallace and the way that the media covered that versus the way that this is being covered.
Okay, folks, we'll got those holding. I think you can hear me, but if you can keep it short, because we'll get as many people in as we can. But we're up against the clock. When it goes to commercial, I cannot stop it. So.
Right, and I see Gary called back in. Again, I think we have to let other people, but if
Yeah,
we have time,
we'll see Gary if we get back to you, but I got to give other folks a shot. But thank you.
It was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
All right, 30 seconds.
Oh,
Oh, he dropped off for now.
All right.
If you're even considering getting your
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network across the state of Wisconsin. It is 8 minutes before the hour of 3 o'clock. At the top of the hour, ABC and CBS News will give us a national update, as well as checking weather and sports with a great sports reporter, Mike Clemens. Packers play tonight. We'll get into that a little bit in hour number 2. Off the text line, brand new listener, Jason from West Allis. Jason, we appreciate you calling in. Great name, by the way. Name of one of my 2 godsons. Jason from West Allis, listening on WAUK, says, "Hey, Todd, love the show. Watching you on YouTube." Well, he's watching on YouTube. Welcome, Jason. Says, "I was out riding my bike when it all went down on 9/11. Yeah. One of these days on September 11th, when we all remember, those of us who were alive and were old enough at the time, you remember exactly where you were. Going to get back to phone lines in just a minute. Quick update for you, courtesy of CNN. Breaking news: multiple historically black colleges and universities in the South were on lockdown or canceled classes this afternoon over potential threats. Hampton University, Virginia State University, Bethune-Cookman University, and Alabama State University are on lockdown after receiving, quote, potential threats to campus safety, unquote, according to posts on school social media pages. The lockdowns come one day after Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative activist and Trump ally, died after a shooting at a Utah College campus event, and on the heels of a wave of active shooter hoaxes at several other college campuses across the state. More on that as it becomes available. We're talking about 9/11 remembrances. 855-752-4842. Let's go to the phone lines. We have Eric listening on AUK in the great city of Milwaukee. Eric, thanks for calling. Let's see.
Hi, thanks. One of the things that I remember the most, and I was not a big fan of the second George Bush presidency, but when he stood there with the megaphone and he kind of rallied the country, I thought that was
his finest moment. And
Agreed.
I get choked up still thinking about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, and a quick pitch. If you've ever seen the movie United '93, if you haven't,
I've not.
every American should see that movie. It's not pleasant to watch, but it's. I saw that in the theater, and the only time in my life, everyone walked out of the theater totally silent.
Wow.
And it's a recreation of the passengers that were on United '93. I watch it every year on this, and I'm going to have to forego the Packer game tonight. And I'm a huge Packer fan, but I watch it every year. Every American should see that movie, United. And I have no affiliation with that movie at all. I'm not trying to make a buck off of it, but a tremendous movie.
Great reminder. I appreciate it. It's on my list. I don't know why. It's one of those movies that I just, for whatever reason, didn't get a chance to see in theaters. So I appreciate you bringing it up. United '93. I'll try to check it out soon. Thanks, Eric. Have a great day in Milwaukee. 855-752-4842. Carmela in Milwaukee on AUK. Carmela, thanks for calling. Let's see.
Hey, hi, Todd. I say this day is, I was old enough to remember. I remember driving into work, and I remember the confusion because they thought it was a small plane. And, you know, and then I get into work. We had executives coming in. They were, my company was trying to merge. Nothing happened that day. We had a small TV in our office, and me, my boss, and two executives are sitting there all day. It was, I ended up like crying several times in front of them, and it was very difficult. But and I remember the trauma after, like probably at least 2 weeks after, it was constantly on the news and showing the towers falling, and I would like cry practically every time. It was so traumatic.
Appreciate that remembrance, Carmela. Thank you so much. And it gets to our point of, we're going to talk about this in hour number 2, how we deal mentally, mental health-wise, with this continual, nonstop bad news information. 855-752-4842. Bill, listening on WMDX here in Madison. Bill, you wanted to talk about the other ongoing story, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. What do you got?
Yeah, well, I'm just old enough to remember when George Wallace was shot, and the difference in the way it was covered with how this is happening. George Wallace was a man who said many controversial and racist things. He was for segregation, and the media had no problem pointing out the things that he said and what he stood for, and without at the same time decrying the violence that occurred to him. This does not seem to be happening right now. People are making this man into a martyr. He was a Christian who supposedly espoused that empathy was damaging society. And if Christ's message was not empathy, I don't know what it was. He was somebody who did not seem to mind gun violence. And even as he was, just before he was shot, he was talking about that. He says that he didn't think women should be allowed to vote. He didn't think black people had the same brain capacity as white people, which is why they had to have programs to help them get ahead. And these things are all terrible things to say about people, and they are not being brought up by the media. They are talking about, they might say he has some controversial ideas, but they are not discussing this, and how I think it's very important that people realize before he's made into a martyr, and nobody thinks that he should have been shot. I certainly don't, but before the media makes him into a martyr, that stuff needs to be discussed as well.
Bill, I can't thank you enough for bringing these points up, because I think they really are important to talk about and bring up and discuss. So thank you, Bill. Really appreciate the call from Madison here at MDX. We're going to talk more about this in hour number 2. And I agree with Bill that Charlie Kirk said some really bad things, in my opinion, divisive things. Does that mean that he deserved or should have been killed? Absolutely not. Period. Full stop. But to Bill's point, I believe both things can be true. That someone said some really bad things and was divisive in our society, but he certainly had the right under the Constitution to say those things and did not deserve to be killed in any way, shape, or form. tough issues to talk to, but really appreciate the thoughtful discussion from both sides this hour. We're going to continue that. Going to give you an update on the new person, the alleged suspect in the Charlie Kirk shooting. Talk about that a little bit more, and who's helping and who's hurting in this discussion. And we will get to mental health in hour 2 as well. Don't go anywhere. It's the Allbaugh Show for a Thursday, September 11th, 2025, across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network.
This is 92.7 WMDX Columbus, Madison's home for real news and great conversation. A Civic Media station.
ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The FBI offering a $100,000 reward and has released a photo of a person of interest following the fatal shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk at a campus event at Utah Valley University. ABC's Pierre Thomas has more.
I'm told by sources it's from surveillance footage in and around the area where the shooting took place. This appears to be a male person wearing sunshades and a baseball cap. The FBI very much wants to talk to that person, and they're asking for the public's help in identifying this person so that they can get access to them and begin to interview them.
Law enforcement sources tell ABC News they've also recovered a high-powered rifle near the campus. Ceremonies today marking 24 years since the 9/11 attacks. President Trump delivered remarks at the Pentagon, the White House moving the ceremony to a courtyard following yesterday's shooting. Consumer prices rose last month compared to a year ago. Americans paying more for nearly everything. This is ABC News.
Download the Civic Media app in the Google Play or Apple App Store and take us everywhere. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
For 92.7 WMDX News, I'm Savannah Tomei Olson. Flags are flying at half-staff across Wisconsin to honor the victims of the September 11th attacks. The nation is also dealing with the aftermath of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a right-wing activist and co-founder of Turning Point USA, who has close ties to federal Republicans. The organization was key in expanding voter outreach, including in Wisconsin. Kirk came to the UW-Madison campus this time last year to register students to vote. He also spoke at the RNC in Milwaukee and campaigned for conservative judge Brad Schimmel. Leaders across the political aisle are disavowing violence. U.S. Representatives Glenn Grothman and Derek Van Orden offered their prayers on social media yesterday. President Donald Trump has ordered flags fly at half-staff Sunday for Kirk, which he did not do for Minnesota Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband when they were gunned down in their home. Speaker Robin Voss was asked about that today.
In the heart of hopefully every patriotic American, we would say that no matter who is assassinated, on the far right, the far left, man, woman, rich, poor, gay, straight, doesn't matter. Assassination is 100% of the time wrong. It's what I thought when Melissa Hortman, who was clearly a liberal Democrat, I didn't hear anybody on the right celebrating the fact that she was assassinated. It was awful.
Democrats like Senator Tammy Baldwin offered their condolences and condemned political violence, too. Assembly Minority Leader Greta Neubauer.
This was another senseless act of political violence and unfortunately against Charlie Kirk, and I want to express my deepest condolences to his loved ones. We all condemn political violence in the strongest possible terms. No one should fear for their lives because of their jobs.
Leaders on both sides of the aisle said they're continuing to have conversations about how to keep lawmakers and staff safe. I'm Savannah Tomei Olson, 92.7 WMDX News.
The Packers in prime time. Hi, I'm Mike Clemens with sports from Lambeau Field in Green Bay, where the Packers play the Washington Commanders tonight. Green Bay 3-point favorites to win. Jordan Love asks if he likes playing in night games.
I like playing in whatever game. No matter what game it is, I'm ready. Obviously, we don't get to pick and choose which games or prime time, things like that. But every game is an opportunity to go out there and win the game. So it doesn't matter when it is, what time, where we're playing at. I'm ready for each game.
Baseball, the Brewers headed home. They open a series tomorrow night in Milwaukee against the St. Louis Cardinals after being swept by the Rangers. Final score yesterday, 6-3. Pat Murphy.
I'm still proud of our guys. I love our guys. It's not lack of effort, guys. It's not letting down. It's maybe the opposite. They're exhausted. We're beat up. We're injured. And things did not go our way this week, you guys, because you guys saw it. That has to happen sometimes.
In other news,
that's Brewers manager Pat Murphy. With sports, I'm Mike
in other
Clemens.
news,
Local news, weather, and sports on
Henry
air and
Vilas
streaming
Zoo
on the Civic Media
is
app.
mourning
This
the
is the
death
Civic
of
Media Radio Network.
Franklin, a male meerkat.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. Another beautiful September day with mostly sunny skies, a high of 77. For tonight, some patchy fog possible late, otherwise partly cloudy with a low of 54. On your Friday, some patchy fog early, then skies becoming mostly sunny, a warm day with a high of 83. Currently, it's 76.
Oh, this is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio. On our
I
show,
love
we
Robert
share
Pilot.
stories
He's
from
a turtle.
Turtle Island,
Oh, yeah.
highlighting the people and issues shaping our communities. From protecting water to treaty rights and preserving languages and traditions, we cover it all. Hear voices like Arvina Martin of Emerge, Wisconsin, Dr. Stately, Robert Lilligren, and more. Because
I'm looking
Native
forward to
issues
next
are
time he's
human
in town,
issues,
and
human
then hopefully we
issues
can have him on the
are
show
Native issues.
in person.
Native Roots Radio, weeknights at 8 on your local Civic Media radio station.
Hey there, Wisconsin. Tom Hartman here. Democracy is not a spectator sport, so join me each and every weekday right here on Civic Media for the Tom Hartman program from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Covering the news of the day and sharing ways for you to get off the sidelines and get active in your community, because change starts with you. Get involved and tune
30
in to the
seconds.
Tom Hartman program
Gracias.
Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here on your local Civic Media radio station.
John Peterson and Gordy Young.
Friday morning, Rocker will be back in the studio with a MaxSync preview. Also, it's our 500th episode, John.
And we're going to have a special guest that no one is going to tell me who it is.
From the Civic Media World Headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, it's the Todd Allbaugh Show. And now, pursuing truth wherever it may lead, here's your host, Todd Allbaugh.
Across Wisconsin on the Civic Media Radio Network and streaming worldwide on the Civic Media app. Good afternoon, everybody. Todd Allbaugh, along with Mr. Aaron Zomers, our producer and engineer. It is a great day to be a Wisconsinite on this Thursday, September 11th, 2025. Welcome in, everybody, to the world headquarters of Civic Media in downtown Madison. A crystal blue sky day here in Madison on this September 11th. As I said in the first hour, eerily like that September 11th, 24 years ago today. And I say it's a great day to be a Wisconsinite, hour number 2 here, because it is. It's great to be alive. And I hope that each of us take stock in that and is thankful for that. And we don't waste our opportunity to do good, to just do something kind for someone. In my opinion, that's the easiest first line of defense to making things better in our communities, in our state, and in our country. Going to talk a little bit more about 9/11 here as we move forward. If you have a remembrance of this day on 9/11 of 2001, if you were alive at the time, give us a call, 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. By the way, technically it's Patriots Day. Congress, in a bipartisan fashion, changed it, or not changed it, but named it Patriot Day, after all of the average Americans, EMTs, firefighters, police, first responders, military personnel, average citizens who rushed into danger on 9/11 and were helpful. And so we remember all those true patriots, those heroes from 9/11, 24 years ago, and all those people in the medical profession, all the doctors, nurses, so on and so forth, the people that were helping. All those folks are certainly heroes, in my opinion. Going to talk a little bit later this hour more about coping, and appreciate Tom, who is a therapist, who called in hour 1, I believe, from McFarland, giving us some real advice or insight that our brains, and Kira Sabin, our life coach and psychologist, has talked about this before, that our brains are physically not wired to be in crisis every day. And I appreciate Tom, a therapist, calling in earlier to remind us as a professional of that our physical bodies are different than our mental bodies. And so to take time to do something, get away from it. Take a walk, read a book, listen to music. So we're going to talk about that a little bit more this hour as well. Might do a what's worse here and talk about the Packers taking on the Washington Commanders tonight at Lambeau Field as well. Mike Clemens has some cuts for us. We're going to use those as well. Want to get to an update of yesterday's big breaking news story. We were on the air, of course, Summers and I, along with Dan Schaefer and Luke Mathers, behind the scenes, bringing you the most accurate information we possibly could. Here is what we know about the new details of Charlie Kirk's assassination yesterday at this hour. A manhunt is underway for the shooter who killed Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative political activist. The FBI released photos of the person of interest and has offered a $100,000 reward for information. FBI Director Kash Patel is heading to Utah to assist with the investigation, according to CNN. An earlier news conference was postponed due to quote-unquote rapid developments, according to officials. The shooter, authorities say they tracked the gunman's movements after he shot Kirk from a roof. Sources say phrases related to cultural issues were scrolled on a rifle and ammunition recovered by authorities, but a motive is not yet clear. Let me say that again. A motive is not yet clear. Earlier today, President Donald Trump, who credited the activist with mobilizing young voters to help him win a second term, said he will posthumously award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And this, of course, comes on at the same time yesterday, breaking news of yet another school shooting in Colorado, where two students were injured, and the gunman apparently died by suicide, and others may or may not be injured. Details still coming forward on that shooting in Colorado yesterday, a school shooting. So I want to continue a thoughtful discussion in this hour of these issues, 9/11 remembrances. Happy to talk about that. Happy to talk a little bit about the Charlie Kirk story. I want to talk about who's helping and who's hurting the overall discussion in our communities. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Len, listening in Madison at WMDX. Len, thanks for holding. What say you?
Hi, sir. Hope you're doing good today.
As good as we can, but thanks for calling.
Hey, I wonder what advice you would give and what role you think disinformation plays in things like the Charlie Kirk assassination. I got to admit, I was listening to Gary a couple callers ago, and I think that's the first conservative person I've heard on this radio station. And I wouldn't call them friends, but I'd say associates that were pretty gleeful about the Charlie Kirk thing, pretty morbid way to act about it. But I heard a caller before say that Charlie Kirk had said that women shouldn't vote or black people didn't have developed brains, and that's strict misinformation. He was certainly against affirmative action in colleges and women taking a greater role in the home, but that type of disinformation definitely gets out there and definitely has an effect on people.
Well,
so how do you recommend speaking to friends and relatives about this kind of situation, particularly in light of, I was listening to you a couple of weeks ago, and I heard you and another guy in there kind of giggling and laughing and saying the world was a better place without Dr. Dobson after he had passed away.
Well, I think there are two different issues. Number one, I appreciate the call, Len. Dr. Dobson passed away at a very old age of natural causes. And, he said some really hurtful things and really hateful things, Dr. Dobson did. I think what we're talking about now with Charlie Kirk, you want accurate information. And to the earlier caller's point, I've got the clips. We can play them. I've chosen so far not to. But Charlie Kirk, in fact, did say on his own platform, on social media, that black people, he said, you get in an airplane, I see a black pilot. The first thing I think of is, are they qualified? He said that. He has said, we have a clip of him quoting Exodus from the Bible saying that gay people should be stoned. And so that's what God has said about gay people. He said that. And I that's so those things that what Charlie Kirk said, much of it is hateful, and much of it is hurtful, and much of it is unhelpful. That's factual. Do I think that Charlie Kirk deserved to die for that? Absolutely not. Should he have been shot and assassinated? Absolutely not. Did he have the constitutional legal right to say those things? Yeah. Yeah, he had the right to say those things. But does that mean he should be killed for it? No. But you can't ignore the fact that he was a lightning rod and said some really bad things. And I've called out on this program before those on the left that are on social media and other places gleeful about Charlie Kirk's assassination. That's terrible. That's sick. I denounce it 100%. It's repugnant. I also think we all have to be mindful of disinformation, and we've seen this in elections of Russia and China and other countries putting out disinformation online. I'll give you an example. Last night, there was around social media, there was a so-called post on Twitter from Laura Loomer, the right-wing supporter, MAGA supporter of President Trump. And I thought, boy, that sounded even out there for her. So I went to her Twitter feed. And what the bot did is took like a line that Laura Loomer had actually tweeted out and then added a bunch of crap that she didn't say. And so we have to be very careful and fact check almost every single thing we see out there, because there are forces outside the United States that are trying to feed both sides what they want to hear, amplifying it with untruths, lies, to pit us against one another. And that's really bad and dangerous. And this is what I'm really concerned about, that there's going to be a reaction to this in a very negative way, and that cooler heads will not prevail. You had Derek Van Orton, the congressman from the 3rd District here in Wisconsin, put out some really terrible things on his Twitter feed. This is from Rachel Schilke, who is from the D.C. Examiner, a reporter this morning, said, quote, Representative Derek Van Orton told reporters that the media, quote, every one of you, unquote, is responsible for Charlie Kirk's death. Quote, you are responsible for this because you are echoing the horrifically horrible political violent rhetoric produced by the Democrat Party, unquote. The reporter asks, how can you say that when we don't even know who the shooter is? Van Orton replies, quote, you know what? Knock it off, unquote. That's just not helpful. A former radio host on this show, or on this network, Kristen Bry, who is now, as they say, on another network. She also has her own social media platform, and she writes for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. There's a conservative radio host who, he doesn't even deserve having his name mentioned. It rhymes with McDonald. An employee of iHeart. Listen, you can hear him here in Madison and Milwaukee. He took my friend Kristen Bry's social media post on her personal social media where she was talking about, yeah, I'm emotional, I have tears, but it's not specifically for Charlie Kirk because people are saying, he's such a terrible person. Why are you crying for him? She's like, I'm in tears because of where we're at as a country. And then she denounced the assassination. And Dan O'Donnell and his producer, I guess I said his name, and these people are saying horrific things about Kristen Bry. Horrific. And it's sick. And if I were anybody advertising iHeartMedia in Madison, Milwaukee, I'd pull my ads. I'd be embarrassed to be on there. Kristen was giving some very raw, real emotions, just sharing her thoughts on this, and was not saying anything derogatory about Charlie Kirk or about his assassination. In fact, she denounced it. And that's what I'm talking about, guys. Who's helping? Who's hurting? And to my friends on the left, don't make Derek Van Orton the martyr either. Don't. He wants this. He revels in it, just like Donald Trump. the more you talk about it and go, it's fine to mention it like I just did, call it out, denounce it. But let's spend our time on what unites us. Let's spend our time on understanding one another. Let's spend our time on bringing the rhetoric down and actually working on real solutions. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. More calls on the other side for Tuesday, September 11th, 2025 on the Civic Media Radio Network.
It's not a lisp. It's where we live.
I think what Len said about Dobson was a fair point to bring up. But yeah, it's
two different things.
Yeah, it is. It is. What was the Mark Twain quote? Something along the lines of, I do not wish death upon anyone, but there are some obituaries. I don't remember exactly how it was phrased, but you know what I'm getting at.
I just sent you this compilation. We'll see.
See if we need it.
No middleman. So you'll get the comfort you want and save a whole lot of money. American made, locally crafted. Verlo.
Hey, Gordy, I got to admit, these hearing aids from Madison Hearing Aid Center changed my life.
Mine too, John. I thought I needed subtitles to talk to my grandkids.
And these aren't those old giant clunkers we saw in the old days. It's got Bluetooth, it's rechargeable, the works.
Yeah, my phone connects straight to my ears. I'm basically a cyborg now.
Well, you just figured out texting last year, too.
Yeah, baby steps. But I did call Madison Hearing Aid Center, and you should too. 608-249-4077.
608-249-4077. Tell them John and Gordy sent you.
Does Donald Trump's big bill provide the largest federal spending cut in U.S. history? No. Spending cuts in the bill that Trump signed wouldn't be the largest ever, despite claims by Republican U.S. Representative Scott Fitzgerald. The
Can we
original
play that
House
first
version
one?
would have nominally cut over
I don't know.
$1.6 trillion
Can you
over 10 years.
can you
The final
I can
version
like
cut
the racial
even
slur?
less,
or I can
$1.2 trillion.
start it and then
With
like mute it when he says that.
$4.5 trillion in tax cuts,
right.
the act
I'll
will
try it
increase
right
Or
federal
just
debt
go
by a
past. Just go.
massive
There's other things on
$3.3
there.
trillion
to choose from.
over the next decade.
Unfortunately.
Nonpartisan analysts say the plan's cuts would rank behind a 2011 law's $2 trillion in spending cuts. As a percentage of GDP, it doesn't rank in the top 5%.
Well, I mean,
I'm Trisha Young for Wisconsin Watch. Fact
feel like
points
it's
are
also-
bite-sized fact checks of
Let's
trending
not play.
claims
There's like
produced
there's
by
enough on there.
Wisconsin Watch
Okay.
and
let's
GigaFast.
not
Learn
change.
more
It's
at
just a small selection.
wisconsinwatch.org.
Thank you.
All right, 25
Every
seconds.
15 seconds, someone is dying.
Pursuing truth wherever it may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Appreciate you being with us. Tough day. Big news day. Tough day. Important discussions. Need to be respectful we have them, but important discussions here. Talking about 9/11, certainly any remembrances you might have of this day 24 years ago. Not just the tragedy, which is horrific, but of all the people helping. EMTs, first responders, firefighters, military, average American citizens who rushed to the scene. Heroes all, in my opinion. Also, the latest on the Charlie Cook assassination. Pardon me, Charlie Kirk. I've heard other people say that, and now I'm saying it. I apologize. There is a new photo of a suspect out. The manhunt continues for the individual. Also, the shooting yesterday in Colorado, where the gunman was who died by suicide. There are 2 other students injured. And by the way, the Packers play tonight. And our mental health. This huge deluge of negative information, what it does to all of us. As our therapist said earlier in the show, step away from it. Read a book, get outside. Listen to music. Put down the phone. because our brains are not wired for all of this. All right, let's go to the phone lines, 855-752-4842. And up next is Jim. Is that where we're going? Jim in Brookfield on WAUK. Jim, thanks for holding. What say you?
I say 9/11 memory. I was driving to work listening to Wisconsin Public Radio, and that was before civic media, of course. But the host had a guest on the phone line from New York, and they were talking, and the host suddenly said, "Oh my gosh, from his apartment, he could see the smoke coming from the Twin Towers." And, obviously the show quickly ended and they switched to full coverage, but I'll never forget that moment driving to work. And then that night, seeing all the long gas lines, every gas station that we drove around, my wife and I with our young daughter, had huge lines. Fortunately we had plenty of gas, but that was a knee-jerk overreaction of people, with the huge gas lines. Fortunately, There was not a crisis. But I do want to inform you and the listeners about a Broadway show, musical, to listen to some music. It's called Come From Away. And what it's about, Todd, is 38 planes, commercial planes or so, that landed unexpectedly quickly because everything was grounded in the town of Gander, Newfoundland. And they brought in over 7,000 people on these 38 commercial flights, big jumbo jets and whatnot. And they were stranded there for 3 days or so before the ban was lifted. But it's a very good Broadway play musical, and it's been turned into a movie, so you can rent the movie.
Wow.
It's still playing in Broadway. But it's very touching, very warm-hearted, but it shows the bonds that were created for these people that have spent 3 days together. The citizens of Gander Mountain, the Canadians, opened their homes, their hearts, and everything to everybody, the stranded passengers. They took them into private homes. They used the gymnasium. They used the auditorium. And it just goes to show the lengths to feed these people, to get them, some type of lodging. But it's a very good, feel-good movie.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Jim. Also, our very own Parker Olson, one of our great producers, says the show toured through Madison a few years ago. I vaguely remember that. I've heard it was a great Broadway show, so cool that it's in movie form now as well. 855-752-4842, 855-752-4842. Let's go out to Los Angeles, California. Tom in L.A. Thanks for calling, L.A. Tom. What's the...
Hey, Todd. First off, go Pack, go.
100%.
Second, we the people ultimately are the government, and we must really work hard to get money out of politics.
Are you there, Tom?
Basically,
there you go. You're back. You cut out for a second. Go ahead.
Anyway, do we have anybody in our media that could sit down and have a talk with Donald Trump and say, why? Use an open-ended question that we learn in Journalism 101 and ask, why is it that you curse on the TV? Why, with little children around? Why is it that you act so differently from any other president? Why is it that you want to divide and conquer this country when you are the president? I would just like to know, the answer to simple questions. Why? Why are you doing this?
Well, I wish I had the answer, but I don't,
But it's a simple question, and we have people in the Washington, press pool. We have people, in media everywhere, whether it's corporate media, but nobody seems to ask the question, why? Why are you doing things that no other president, Ronald Reagan never would have done this. None of the other presidents would have acted the way that he is acting. All of a sudden pitting people because of a tragedy that happened yesterday and a horrible thing that happened yesterday. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm talking about the kids being shot in the school. But why it is he comes out right away and says, oh, we're going to give this guy a badge of honor. Why is it that they're going to go ahead and, put the flags at half-mast? Why?
I can't answer. I'm certainly not in Donald Trump's head, but I think the people that are smarter than me, that have studied folks, say that he certainly has a narcissistic personality, puts himself before others, and he certainly is unlike any person in the White House that we've ever seen before. And
well, the one thing I would say, Todd, to finish up is I'm going to
20
focus
seconds.
on these. I'm going to focus on these Epstein files because I'll tell you what, that's where I think everything, where the threat is that has it all. And Donald Trump always tries everything he can to keep changing the subject from the Epstein files. We had the whole birthday book the other day, and all of a sudden this happens.
Yeah.
So I just would like people to stay focused on it and release the files.
Appreciate the phone call, LA. Thank you so very much as always. I think it gets back to just what we can control. And that is what we can do to protect our own mental health, what we can do in our communities to be more understanding, have good conversations like we're having today. We'll have more of them on the other side. Farm News Update is next and more of your calls. Don't go anywhere. We see you on the lines. Do not hang up.
WMDX, Madison, living side by side with Sandhill Plains.
Everybody on the line, lots of people holding. So if you want to hold through the break, we will get to you as quickly as we can.
Yeah, it's about 5 minutes till we're back.
US/careers. Summer is the high season for ethanol plants, but what happens when travel is done and the requirements for
As
ethanol
Pam Yankee said,
production and gasoline
movement is motion.
are brought back
Or,
down? I'm
I
Ben
screwed it
Jarbo
up.
with the Midwest
Movement is
Farm
medicine
Report,
and motion
Bill
is lotion,
Tunn,
I
the
think is what
commodities
she said.
director with Allbaugh, is here to give us that answer.
Great question. Great question. You know, ethanol is very seasonal, obviously. Summer driving and what we call summer blends, where like Arizona and California are legally mandated to use higher ethanol usages in the summer. So this is our peak season right here, right now, as far as profit margins and things. Unfortunately, these plants are very difficult to shut down. So when margins are less inducive, like say in the wintertime when people are driving less, we will slow them down. You know, somewhere 70 to 80% is kind of where you can run a little bit efficiently and still keep the doors open.
Bill Tunn, the commodities director at Aslan Bio out of Jefferson County, joining us to give some insight on how they manage to get through the slower seasons of ethanol production. From the Midwest Farm Report, I'm Ben Jarbo, and we'll take a look at the closing markets right after this.
When you walk into Bavaria Sausage, you should feel very welcome. Fabulous Farm Babe Pam Yankee speaking from experience. The retail location on the corner of Nesbitt Road, Fitzroner Road in Fitchburg has that feel. You'll notice it on their website, BavariaSausage.com, and you'll see it on their posts on Facebook. Bavaria Sausage not only features their old world flavors, their recipes, their combinations, and all the food that they make, but they also highlight real Wisconsin products in their recipes, in their store. Flavors from syrups to mustards to treats, all with Wisconsin stories that they love to share. When you walk into Bavaria Sausage, it's not just about their story, it's about Wisconsin food stories. Check it out. Shop online anytime, BavariaSausage.com. Follow them on Facebook for their latest menu updates, or visit corner of Nesbitt Road, Fitzroner Road in Fitchburg.
Welcome back. I'm Ben Jarbo with the Midwest Farm Report.
I love listening
now
to
let's
Ben
see how the
Jarbo.
markets closed this Thursday. Grain and dairy had opposite directions today, as cash and new crop corn is up 2 3/4 at $4.19 3/4, and cash and new crop soybeans are up 8 1/4 at $10.33 1/2. December wheat is up 6 1/2 at $5.21 1/2. Like I said, dairy is not doing as hot, with Class 3 milk for October down 23 cents at $16.33 a hundredweight, and November contracts are down 26 cents at $16.32 a hundredweight. 40-pound blocks of cheese saw 5 1/4 cent losses at $1.62, and AA butter
Here's
closed
the
down 3
headline on
3/4
CNN.
at $1.92 3/4.
Aaron Rodgers'
Midwest
alleged
Farm Report,
wife,
I'm Ben
potentially
Jarbo.
identified as family, raises doubts about
Join the
marriage.
family. Civic Media has a number of great jobs
Thank you,
across
CNN.
the state. Open
Thank you,
now
CNN.
at
Very TMZ
civicmedia.us/careers.
there at CNN.
I'm meteorologist Brandon Bormans. Another beautiful September day with mostly sunny skies, a high of 77. For tonight, some patchy fog possible.
See, here's a story I
late,
like to talk
otherwise
about.
partly cloudy
This
with a low
Cuban
of
coffee
54.
shop owner
On your
is
Friday,
living
some
the
patchy
American
fog
dream
early, then
and
skies
spreading it
becoming
in his
mostly sunny,
community.
a warm day with a high of
I
83.
understand why we can,
Currently,
but I'm just
it's
saying
70.
these are things that would be
Doctors
easier to
Without
talk
Borders
about.
is
But we're
delivering
here to
life-saving
have
medical
the hard
care
discussion.
where it's needed most in communities
Hard,
around
just
the world. From
sometimes it's
bandaging
not always
war-wounded
easy.
patients in Sudan to providing clean drinking water in Haiti, we're in more than 70 countries worldwide, bringing patients from sick to recovering, from emergency to aid, from crisis to care. This life-saving care is made possible by a global movement of supporters like you. Thank you.
I'm Rick Smith, host of The Rick Smith Show. If you're looking for honest talk, real stories, and straight-up news that matters to you, tune in to The Rick Smith Show. We're digging into the issues that affect your job, your family, your future. Join me weeknights at 9 on the Civic Media Radio Network. Because
25
your voice
seconds.
deserves to be heard. That's The Rick Smith Show. Heard weeknights at 9 right here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
We got 2.
Maggie Dawn.
I've got a little personal business to attend to, but don't worry.
Pursuing truth wherever you may lead and having fun doing it. Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network. Quick update for you. The top news story we had for you at the top of the show, according to Channel 12 News, ABC, out of Milwaukee, a small plane that went down into Lake Michigan, more than 12 nautical miles off the coast of Racine. According to the U.S. Coast Guard, 3 people were on board and have been rescued. According to the Coast Guard, our very own Stuart J. Waddles reporting that there were no or at least no significant injuries, is what he is reporting, to those 3 people that were rescued by the United States Coast Guard. They're being taken to a Coast Guard station in Milwaukee to be evaluated. So that is certainly some good news on this Thursday. And hats off to our great Coast Guardsmen in the United States Coast Guard down there in Milwaukee and Racine. Will continue to update that story for you as more details become available. Packers play tonight. You can hear it on many of our Civic Media stations starting at 5 o'clock this afternoon with a pregame show kickoff just after 7 o'clock. You can hear it on the great station, best station in the network, WRCO, 100.9 FM in Richland Center. It's the best station because that's where I started my radio career. WRCO. Da-da-da. WRCO Richland Center has it for you in the southwest part of the state. WCQM 98.3 in Park Falls. Also, WAUH 102.3 FM in Watoma is our newest Green Bay affiliate. And is RJN carrying it tonight? I think so. RJN 99.9 FM and 1400 AM in Racine and 98.1 FM in Kenosha. Packer Radio Network. Wayne Larrabee and The Rock tonight. Kickoff at 7 o'clock, pregame show at 5 p.m. Watch the Packers tonight or listen to them. Take your mind off of things. Talking about the events and how our brains are not wired to handle this constant bad news days. It's just human nature. Talked to our therapist earlier. Not our therapist, but called in. Confirming that our brains are not wired for this. And so that's why we have to give our brains a break for each and every one of our mental health reasons, or to take care of our mental health. If you want to weigh in, 855-752-4842, 855-751, try that again, Todd, 855-752-4842.
No, 855-752-4842.
Once in a while, the old brain just slips. Speaking of someone who needs to take care of their mental health,
the dyslexia
Todd,
creeps up.
Once in a while, the old dyslexia creeps in. Allie, listening in Madison on WMDX, says, 9/11 scared me, but I knew I had my government. I'm more scared today living under Donald Trump. All right, that's a fair point there. Also, what else do we have here on the old text line in terms of 9/11 remembrances? I think we have some a little bit earlier. Hang on here. I guess we're pretty... Megan in Sun Prairie on MDX says, I remember being pulled out of school on 9/11, not really understanding what was going on. I was only 7, but I remember how scared and upset the adults were. Fair enough. Yeah, I certainly remember that as well. Steve in Milwaukee, listening on WAUK. I'll never forget, I was in 3rd period of my sophomore year in high school. Everything just stopped, and nothing was ever the same. You could hear a pin drop in my school, and all the classes were wide open there. Not many walls. Steve also says our social studies teacher was one of the first to grab a TV so we could watch the news. I know it seems foreign today because everybody be watching it on their phones, right? But 2001, not a lot of people had internet yet. So we were all still either watching on TV or broadcast radio. 855-752-4842. John in beautiful Edgerton, listening on WMDX. John, thanks for calling. We'll see you.
Yes, how are you doing?
As good as we can. Thank you.
Yes, so I remember that day very clear. I had moved from Chicago, and I was working here in Madison. I dated a woman from New York for about 4 years, and I'd been in the World Trade Center tower numerous times. And I remember someone sitting there saying, wow, the plane just ran into a tower. And I was sitting there going, well, how'd that happen? I mean, the last time something like that happened was, I think, the Empire State Building. And so I knew it could happen. And so we all went running to computers, and we were checking it out because our company was run by computers at the time. And it was just like totally amazing how something like that could happen on a beautiful day the way it was.
Yeah.
And so I went back to work, and a friend of mine, Will, he was from New York, and I said, did you hear the plane just hit one of the towers? And he said, no. And we continued working for a little bit of time, and all of a sudden I heard that another one hit. And it was exactly at that moment I said, we just got hit by bin Laden.
Yeah.
And it was shocking. And excuse me, it still makes me choke up a little bit sometimes. Yeah. I remember sitting out at the break time when all the planes were taken out of the sky, and I looked how blue it was and how quiet it was, and there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest feeling.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, those of us who lived through it, it's a feeling like I've never experienced before or since. And pray God we never will. But thank you, John. Appreciate your call. Appreciate your remembrances of 9/11. 855-752-4842. Zummers.
I mean, for me, I was born at the end of 1998, so I obviously do not remember 9/11.
Yeah.
But I do remember learning about it in school and coming home and talking to my parents about it and asking what they remember. And they were living, as they do, in Manitowoc at the time, and they talked about how afraid they were in going and getting my older sister out of school. And I was like, well, why were you afraid? We're in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. They're not going to attack here. And she was like, Aaron, you don't understand. Everything changed.
Yeah.
It was not.
Yeah.
That's just not what people were thinking.
I appreciate you sharing that, because for people of your generation, it's difficult to fully understand what people felt and went through. Right. Just like for me, I wasn't born when Pearl Harbor happened or some of these other things that were of another generation. So that's why history is so important, right? Why accurate history is important. But 855-752-4842. Let's go quickly to Mark in Pernistack. Mark, thanks for calling. We'll see you.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I certainly remember 9/11 and what happened that day. I first personally started listening to BBC radio because I wanted to get a different slant than what I feared was going to be American jingoistic anti-Arab sentiment on the radio. But getting back to Charlie Kirk with his criticism of when he gets on a plane and sees it's a black pilot, he assumes that, well, that's probably a DEI hire there. The fact of the matter is that black pilot probably had to work harder to get to the position he got than a white pilot would, because he's probably as qualified, if not more qualified, than a white pilot is probably what had happened. And for them to not admit that is actually racism, that was a racist screed to say that talking about the that how denigrating not only people of color but also second-class position of women, because the fact of the matter is that they're equally their brains are equal to men's brains, and that as far as for people of color, the racism that is in this country, that has a little fact I picked up from a history book on the Confederacy is there was a Confederate officer that actually proposed that African slaves be freed and be inducted into the Army because he thought they were equally qualified in intelligence and courage as any white. And the Confederate government did not want to do that because they said, well, if we do that, it will prove that they are equal to any white person, and we certainly don't want that to be known.
Right. No, I appreciate the comments, Mark. And again, what those things like that, and again, we have it on tape, those are things that Charlie Kirk did say. He had the right to say them under the Constitution, no matter how much I disagree with it. And again, important to keep emphasizing, the disagreement is in no way, shape, or form an excuse or a reason for him to be assassinated. And it's repugnant that he was. And I denounce it 100%. He had a wife, he had kids, and he said things that I very much disagreed with, that I find are hateful and hurtful. But that is not a reason to kill someone. 855-752-4842. Off the text line quickly, I want to address this quickly. WMDX, Bart listening on MDX. I think this is a small minority on the left, but because I've heard this on the Thom Hartmann program on this network, I'm going to address it. Bart says, quote, George Bush repeatedly ignored warnings that bin Laden was about to attack the USA with aircraft. 9/11 was Bush's excuse to go to war, so he would be reelected. 9/11 is the Bush bin Laden terrorist attack, unquote. That's Bart, listener on WMDX. Bart, you're just wrong. And I find it disqualifying that somebody like Thom Hartmann would repeat this. I heard it himself. We've saved the clip where he accused former President Bush of knowing about this and allowing nearly 3,000 people to perish on 9/11. That's horse crap. And it's an offense to all the military people, all the intelligence people, all the good people that worked in the White House, some people I know tangentially that worked there. And to suggest that an American would allow 3,000 fellow Americans to die intentionally for political purposes is sick. And there's no proof to it. It is conspiracy theory crap. And it's offensive to everybody, all the real American heroes who perished on this day 24 years ago. 855-752-4842. CJ in Stoughton. CJ, what say you?
Well, thank you for that explanation, Todd. Just remember, 18 resolutions against Saddam Hussein by the UN, and they did nothing. Well, Colin Powell, a black man, our Secretary of Defense, went and showed videos of, or still shot, satellite videos of reasons why that Saddam was not forthcoming and we had reason to go to war. It wasn't a lie. It maybe was questionable, but the mere fact Saddam Hussein caused that. But here's the reason I called. Thank you for taking my call.
Yeah. Let me just quickly say, I don't want to get into it, but I think there's a huge difference in the intelligence on the Iraqi war and weapons of mass destruction and actual 9/11. But I just want to, let's move on.
Well,
go ahead.
300,000 people were killed by chemicals, supposedly by him. And they found burial sites.
Colin Powell later testified and said that he was misled. Colin Powell admitted that they were misled with bad information, CJ, but go on.
Well, that maybe is the case, but they went 18 resolutions and the UN stood by and did nothing.
All right. I don't want to be argumentative.
Either party does not own discourse and violence. So first off there. But I want to say, if you want to hear Charlie Kirk I had a chance to go see him when he was here about a year ago at the UW. I got up to the microphone. I spoke to him. I watched him be respectful. He asked people that don't agree with him to come to the front of the line. And you maybe don't agree with him, but everybody who says, but after they say he didn't deserve it, but it, like my parents said, the but nullifies everything you said before that. So if you want to believe or hear the truth of Charlie Kirk, there's evidence all over of what he believes and why he believes it.
Up against the clock. Thanks, CJ, for the call. We'll come back, wrap things up for a September 11th, 2025. We'll end with some news on the Packers. Stay with us. It's the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Wisconsin
And
is cheering
LA
on
Tom, if you're watching on the stream, we have the clip saved. I made sure that Zomer saved it. Hartman said, look, I mean, I admit it's conspiracy theory stuff. And then he went on to say it. He did say it to LA.
Native nations asked the U.S. Supreme Court to uphold the longstanding right of individuals.
He said this conspiracy theory stuff, but there's a line of thought that Bush knew this stuff and he was warned about it, but he allowed it to happen.
I would play it, but it's 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, if you want to give Zommers your email, I'd be happy to email it to you to let you hear it for yourself. But I thought it was disqualifying.
The 8th Circuit Court decision in Arkansas, the state of North Dakota reneged on its deal with the tribe. The decision said only the U.S. Justice Department, not individual voters, could bring suits to enforce the VRA. Of 450 VRA Section 2 cases since 1982, only 18 were brought by DOJ.
I mean, Zommers, you've heard it. Am I accurate?
yeah, he was not talking about Iraq. He was specifically saying like 9/11 and talking about, yeah, George W. Bush went on vacation and he decided to stay there and not do anything about it.
Right. So it was specifically about 9/11. That is disqualifying. It's not true. And even if you think that's true, not you, L.A. Tom, but even if Hartman thinks that's true, other people, then they should be referencing actual verifiable facts to make that accusation. And I would say that on the left or the right.
I'm Brian Beal.
It's the Eco Minute, powered by Clean Wisconsin, your environmental voice since 1970. I'm Amy Barrio. Hunters, beware what you eat. Wisconsin health officials have issued a new consumption advisory for ducks harvested on Green Bay. Testing shows mallard and wood ducks on the bay are contaminated with toxic PFAS forever chemicals. UW-Madison researchers have linked contamination in the bay to Tyco Fire Products near Marinette. A key research center on the Mississippi River is falling prey to big federal cuts targeting science. The French Island facility, known as an ecosystem research area, produces information on water quality, invasive species, wildlife diseases, and more. Heavy cuts to the program take effect on October 1st and could effectively eliminate more than a century of scientific research. Knowledge is power. Right now on the Defender podcast, $150 million is available to help Wisconsinites upgrade their homes and cut energy use. Learn how to get started at cleanwisconsin.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Lace up your sneakers, Wisconsin. The Walk to End Alzheimer's is coming to Madison on October 5th. Walk with WMDX in honor of
We
someone
got
you love.
just
and
over
help
30
us get
seconds.
closer to
Gracias.
zero. Registration is free.
Welcome back to the Todd Allbaugh Show on the Civic Media Radio Network, where it is now 8 minutes before the hour of 4 o'clock. At the top of the hour, ABC events or CBS News, depending upon which of our great stations you're listening to. A weather update on this beautiful, I was going to say not a cloud in the sky, but now a couple of soft, fluffy clouds here at the world headquarters of Civic Media in downtown Madison. A sports update by our great sports reporter, Mike Clemens, ahead of tonight's Packer game. Pre-game show kicking off at 5 o'clock on many of these stations in Richland Center, Park Falls, Racine, Kenosha, and now also in Watoma on the Packer Radio Network. Thursday Night Football. If you want to watch it on TV, you got to have Amazon Prime for Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit, or better yet, listen to it on one of our Packer Radio Network stations. Wayne Larrivee and The Rock on the call tonight. 5 o'clock pregame, 7 o'clock kickoff later on tonight. And then another edition after Clemens Sports Update. We have the Maggie Dawn Show from, well, I guess for an hour, 4 until 5 on some stations, 4 until 6 on others. And then Pete Schwaba will be along with Nightlight after that. Look, I want to wrap up this. I appreciate all the calls. And I appreciate the fairly civil discussion. This is what I think is healthy. I think it's a little cathartic for everyone to talk this out. And we're going to be following up more mental health. It happens to be Mental Health Awareness Month, by the way. But I think earlier I apologize, our caller from McFarland. Is it Tom?
Yes.
Tom from McFarland, who is a therapist, who is a trained, licensed therapist, as is our own Kira Sabin, positive psychology coach. And this comes from professionals, folks, not from Todd, from that professional healthcare people, mental health care people. We are not wired as human beings for the deluge of information that we get today. Part of that is because it used to be like when I was growing up and be a kid, either you put on one of the 3 stations on broadcast or you get your daily paper on the step in the morning. But now the information is in our hands, in our smartphones, our smart watches every day. And so we know about a lot more things. Unfortunately, we know about a lot of bad things, and it can overwhelm our brains, our own mental health. It's not good for us. I'm not saying that we should ignore the news, but as Kira, as Tom, licensed professionals in healthcare, mental health care, we need to get away from it. And we need to get outside, take a walk, read a book, listen to the Packers, watch the Packers, spend time with the people that we love and we care about, and take care of ourselves, right? Because at the end of the day, I have the honor and privilege of having a microphone every day. I fully understand that I, as one individual, I ain't going to change the world. I'm not going to stop political violence. I'm not going to stop gun violence. My objective every day to come on is to bring you factual information and find ways to find things that unite us in our communities and encourage each of us, including myself, to get involved in our communities, because that's where it starts, by understanding our neighbors. And then, your neighbor's away, you mow their grass. When your other neighbor comes home, you take him a batch of cookies. I know it sounds super, super simplistic and, geez, Todd, you're Pollyanna. I get it. There's some terrible things happening. But if we try, Kira's talked about this, if we try to take on all the problems of the world ourselves, I have to fix this. That's a normal reaction, by the way, they've told us. We want to fix everything, but we know we can't. And so our brain disconnects. What we can do is build healthier relationships with those around us, our coworkers, our friends, our neighbors. We can control that. We can control how we talk with one another. Even people we might disagree with. Hey, you have the right to say it, but recognize they can be a good person as well, even if we disagree. Those are things we can control, you guys. And it starts there. And that's why I love coming to work every day, because I get to take callers like we did today to listen, to learn together, and to realize that we might not always agree, but we're all Wisconsinites. And we're a lot of us, I know not everybody in Wisconsin is a Packers fan, but most of us are. I think the thing was most jarring for me yesterday, of all the things, was to go through my personal Facebook feed last night and see people that are kind of tangential Facebook friends. We all have those. And the number of people that I kind of didn't know where they were necessarily politically, and seeing this connection with the Charlie Kirk MAGA movement and the Christian faith. And someone who is a very imperfect person of faith, a Christian myself, I just have a hard time with some of the things that Charlie Kirk said is in complete juxtaposition to the actual teachings of Christ. And when you see how deeply embedded that is in celebrities and sports figures, friends, family, it reminds me of the work we have to do, of the understanding that we need to achieve with one another. And on my part, my language, my vocabulary that I use is not incendiary. and how I can do my little part to bring us together, to listen to one another, and to remind all of us that's what makes Wisconsin great. It's our people. It's our diversity, our strength is our strength. Because, you know, in Wisconsin, we have not just Packer fans, but Vikings fans and Bears fans. We're all football fans. Look, watch the Packer game. Listen to it tonight on the radio. Get out, touch grass, as the kids say, and take care of yourselves, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Until then, whatever you're fighting for, whatever you believe in, do not give up. Keep banging your drum. We'll see you tomorrow.
Adios, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye.